Hey JJ,
Stan Grow, what's up, man?
how's it going?
Really good. I appreciate you making time today. I was excited to talk to you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you setting up some time for me
Yeah,
today.
for sure. You're gonna help me launch this little podcast called Beginnings, and I think it's gonna be some great origin stories for artists like you and other artists. So, let's get to it. I mean, you got a new single out, Relapse, but we're not gonna start there. We're gonna go way back. Sam Grow, the kid. All right, your childhood. What was a typical Sam Grow childhood like for you?
Man, I grew up small town childhood in Winfield, Kansas. So
Did you really?
yeah,
Shut
yeah,
up! It's just down the road.
yeah. So my dad, he was a lineman, and
Okay.
one of his jobs brought him out to do line work in Winfield. So that's really where I fell in love with music. I sang in church the first time when I was 5, and then obviously the Walnut Valley Bluegrass Festival came.
Yes.
And my dad was friends with God rest his soul, Kevin, who ran that festival at the time. So he'd bring me backstage, and I got to watch all those people play, like John McCutcheon, Alison Krauss when she was
Wow.
super young. So just like Union Station. So I got to see all those bands, and just fell in love with the live performance aspect of it. And I mean, Kansas is where I really fell in love with doing country music. So
Right on.
uh, it's appropriate and cool that I get to talk to you today.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea. I mean, I saw some of your stuff online, your bio and things like that. It put you out in Maryland. How'd you get out to Maryland?
So again, my dad had a job. So Hurricane Isabel came up through the East Coast and ripped down a bunch of power lines,
Okay.
and so my dad had to go back to the company that he worked to at before, and brought me back. I was actually born in Maryland,
Okay.
because my dad was working for that particular power company, and then he brought me out to Kansas from 5 to 12.
Okay.
So my raising was in Winfield, and then he brought me back to Maryland, and not soon after I moved to Tennessee. So I'm kind of a transplant kid. I've
Uh,
lived everywhere.
Almost like an army brat or a military brat or something like that. Got you moving all over
Yeah,
the place. That's
yeah.
cool. I actually didn't live too far from you in Maryland. I lived in Virginia, in the Shenandoah Valley for some time. So
Well, yeah,
up by Harrisonburg and
yeah,
Winchester and places like that.
yeah. I played the Apple Blossom Festival
Right
all
on.
through. Yeah.
That
So
parade
yeah,
is that parade is nuts.
it is, and it's such a good time, man.
Yeah.
And I love country music there, so it's been a good time. I've gotten to play it 2 or 3 times, so it's been fun.
Right on. Cruising the main street in Mechanicsville, Maryland. You hit the Wawa. What are you getting for a snack to replenish,
Oh
to refuel? What are you getting when you walk into the Wawa there?
man, I mean, their sandwiches are
Okay.
untouched. You really can't beat their sandwiches, especially if it's around Thanksgiving and you can get a gobbler sandwich.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
and their chicken noodle, honestly, their chicken noodle soup is unrivaled as well. They
I
got the
love it.
fat in it, so
I
good.
love it. Yeah, see, that's the thing. I mean, this is comfort food, road snack food. It's stuff that brings back and evokes really good memories. So we'll get on the road. You'll head to Nashville in 2014. How real was the struggle when you first moved to Nashville?
I'll be honest with you, man. I had it so good.
Because
It was,
I hear stories about people living out of their cars.
oh
It's not,
yeah, yeah. So I was already touring full time. By the time I was 17, I was out in a van with a band. I was playing every weekend, all the time. So by the time I got to Nashville, I was already playing 250 dates a year. And my whole story was just the Nashville story is a complete fluke, really. My bass player, who's known me and been in my life since I was 15, and he's still in my band to this day. He was like a dad to me. And so he sent an email to like 55 different producers in Nashville because he was like, we have to get you known in the area.
right.
And one producer hit him back. His name was Matt McClure, who produced Lee Bryce.
Nice.
And uh, he said, hey, I'd like to work with this kid. When's he going to be in town? So Gene, my bass player, just got us a random gig off Second Street. At the place was called National Underground. It's not
Okay.
there. And he got us like a Sunday or Tuesday gig at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And he was like, you have to invite this producer, man. He's got to come see you. I was like, he's never going to come see me, man. He was like, just shoot him a text anyway.
Right.
So I started off the text and was like, hey, I know you're not going to come watch us, but I'm playing at 1 o'clock at National Underground.
Prime
Which,
time, baby. Prime time.
yeah. And so he's like, hey, can you stick in Nashville for a couple of days? And I was like, sure. And Matt brought me over to a publishing company, and that publishing house offered me a deal on the spot.
I love
And
that.
Yeah, so I immediately signed a publishing deal. So my move was because they were like, you have to be in town to write songs if we're gonna pay you to write songs. And I
Right.
didn't even know you paid to write songs at that time either. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, wait,
So,
I get paid for doing what I love. This is
I'm like,
nuts.
what? This is crazy. I do this for free for a long time. Uh, so yeah, I moved in and then I got that deal so quick that obviously the word spread in town and
Yeah,
I did showcases and that whole thing. So there wasn't, fortunately for me, it was just not a lot of struggle. There was a lot of struggle before that time,
sure,
with living in a van and playing
sure.
4 or 5. But yeah, my Nashville story was super easy.
Man, I love that. So that didn't squash your hustle though. I mean, because you're so used, like you said, to playing so many gigs a year. Now you got the deal. Now you're ready to start really seeing where this thing goes. 2019 Love and Whiskey comes out. You are firing on all cylinders. And then the pandemic hit. And I read this part of your story, and I love how you kind of pivoted and shifted gears, didn't stop playing, but kind of took it to a smaller venue, we'll call it. Tell me a bit more about how you kind of worked through the pandemic.
Yeah, man. So I did the whole stay at home for 45 days. I thought that at that time, obviously, I thought, well, we just all have to hunker down for 45 days and that's it. Then we'll be able to go back and do stuff. When I realized that that was not in the imminent future, I got online and I looked up the rules across the country and saw that, like, even in strict states, you could still have 10 people over in your backyard.
Right.
So a manager and I was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna go and play in people's backyards," which he immediately laughed at me.
Sure.
but he was like, "What are you gonna pull your tour bus up to people's, houses?" And I said, "No, I'll look like ridiculous, like Ty Pennington, like I'm remodeling homes." I was like, "No,
Move that
yeah,
bus. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna drive my truck."
Right.
And and he was like, "Man, if anybody will book that, I'll help you." And I
Okay.
got online and posted a status on Facebook. And within 3 hours, I had, 30 shows in 17 states
That's
booked.
amazing.
And
That's
he
amazing.
was like, "And do you want to do more?" And I was like, "Let's do as many as we can." So
Yeah.
2020, I played 89 shows from California all the way back to the East Coast. I put 140,000 miles on that truck,
Wow. Wow.
played in backyards. And I do it to this day because I
Sure.
had so much fun.
Yeah.
It was honestly just made me re-love my job
Mhm.
even more, because when you're caught up in the wheel of everything all the time, you don't realize how good you have it,
Mhm.
and 2020 being able to break it down and have connection with people like that, direct connection with people, was such a huge thing for me. And now I do it every single year. I'm doing
Yeah.
it again this
It,
year and never
it was
stop doing
such a smart thing to do. You talk about that human connection, and that's what so many people were craving when we were, social distancing all the time. And the reason I love that story, we did something very similar here. I mixed down a bunch of dance music, and I would do these impromptu, JJ's dance parties, and I'd
it.
go to places of business, people's backyards, graduation parties, and I would pull up with a van and uns, uns, uns for like
That's
15 minutes. People would, dance away, and then I'd pull out, and
yeah.
people loved it because they just really at that point in time just needed something.
Yeah. People need people, man. And you
Yeah.
don't realize take that away. And it's honestly, I made great friends. And as a songwriter, it was, top tier because I basically got to hang out at these people's houses and see all their pictures of their family and
Yeah.
hear their stories of the old car in the garage
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever. For me as a songwriter, it was so I got to live life when a lot of my songwriter buddies weren't,
Right.
and that's so important for us on the writing process. And I was just super blessed, again, super blessed to get to do that.
So you played the Opry in 2021 for the first time. What was that like stepping on that stage?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's was a Super Bowl for me. My dad, he took me to Nashville for the first time when I was 14, and the very first place he took me by was the Grand Ole Opry. And he was like, "Son, there's going to be a lot of country singers in this town, but they don't count until they step into the circle. None of
Mm-hmm.
them are in my eyes until they step into the circle." So for me, it started off as a quest to be cool for my old man.
Sure, sure.
But you realize as you get older how hard it is to make it to the Opry. So getting to do that was a dream come true, and it's still my favorite and most honored places that I get to play. And I can tell you now, July 22nd, I get to go back.
Nice,
So
nice.
I'm
Will that be your second time playing?
a second
Cool,
time,
cool.
and I'm pumped to just be able to have that little bit of history in my career, is to play the Opry is every country artist dream, I think,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
amazing.
Let's talk the new single Relapse. Where did this song come from, as far as your songwriting, your experiences? How did it come about?
So I have a publishing company, and I signed this girl. Her name's Alexandria Korn, just because she's such an interesting like writer. Her mindset is different than anybody I've ever written with. And the funny thing about her, she always has great titles. And she shared with me one day that she's like, "Oh, Sam, I got this great title." She goes, "I was sitting in this bar eating chicken wings," and she just eavesdropped on this person's conversation. She'll go to this little bar near her house and just listen to people
Yeah.
talk and titles. And this girl was talking to her friend, and she was saying, "Gosh, going back to this guy is more like a relapse
Oh,
rather than, rekindling." She goes, "This isn't a rekindling, it's a relapse." And so she wrote down the title, and as soon as she said it, I was like, "Oh,
yeah.
I can do that
You
so
can.
much." A lot of people can.
Sure, sure.
So we just went off to the races and wrote it. But yeah, it came from her.
Nice. If she likes working with titles, I'm going to give you one that I want you to pass along to her. It's been a couple of them actually, but this one's my favorite. And I started writing it years ago, not having any idea about how to write music, just more of a poem. But I wish I'd seen her going coming.
I wish I seen her going coming.
I don't know whether there's anything there, but throw it out there to her. The other one is She Got the Ring, I Got the Finger, but that's more of a joke than anything else.
Oh, I have a line in a song that says something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Right
Yeah,
on. That's funny.
that's good. That's real good.
That's pretty amazing. You got a lot of tattoos. What's your latest tattoo, and what one do you want to get next?
My latest tattoo is this one,
Right
which is
on.
on, um, which is again serendipitous that we're talking. Kansas is where I've always kind of felt that peace and that nostalgia.
Hmm.
So sunflower, and then I
Love
put
it.
the anchor there just because
Sure.
it's all where I can put my anchor. So
Sure.
that's what I got. And I just got married. Uh,
Congratulations.
Thank you, November 18th,
Okay.
and my wife, one of the things that she said to me, obviously I wasn't the most put together man when she got with me because I've been a musician and on the road majority of my life. And
Sure.
her iconic text that she sent to me was, "Forward, baby, always forward, that we're always move
Mm,
forward."
mm.
And so that's going to be my next tattoo. She's going to write it out and I'm
Nice.
tattooing.
My late wife Michelle and I had a word we used a lot as she had a kidney transplant, a lot of health issues, and
Mm.
but we used the word Kadima, which is I believe if I researched it correctly, it's the Hebrew word for forward. It was always our
Oh,
word. It was always our word. Just kind of keep going forward. So I bond with you over that.
yeah, that's awesome.
Describe yourself with a hashtag.
uh Hashtag normal.
Okay, all right, because you like you were just saying, you haven't always been, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
most
yeah.
most famous person on your phone.
Oh, Jelly Roll.
No no shit.
Yeah,
Really? God,
yeah.
That Wits at Chapel album is fire from start to
He's the
finish.
guy in the world, man. He honestly is the best guy in the world.
You can see it.
Yeah, if you can't cheer for Jelly Roll, there's something wrong with you. And
You got
there's,
a you got a bee on your hat.
oh, yeah, out here on my back porch.
No, that's cool.
But yeah, man, he's just always been the sweetest dude, and I was lucky enough to meet him before his mainstream success. He was
Sure.
always successful since I've met him. He's been an amazing business guy.
Right.
Really smart with publishing and all that. But yeah, Jelly's the
Cool.
best.
Nice. One final question. Something you're into right now that has absolutely nothing to do with your job, like something you're passionate about, a hobby or something like that.
Uh, probably, probably. And I've always been involved. I love fishing, so fishing is probably my other hobby. Just trying to figure out how to,
Finding
oh,
time. Yeah, yeah. Finding time. I renewed my license back in April. Still have yet to drown some bait. I'm still just haven't yeah, I just haven't made the time. I gotta make the time. Like this, a lot of
yeah,
so many songs say you got to make the time, right? So,
that's,
well,
if I
listen.
ever, I'll just come and drag you out to one of those
Perfect.
lakes.
I was gonna say if you're ever back in Kansas for the Bluegrass Festival, whatever, let's get together, because your story's a great story, and honestly, I wish you continued success and growth and big things. I'm sure are in your future. Again, the new single is Relapse. We'll put a lot more of your music up on the blog post for Beginnings. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, JJ. I appreciate you, man.